I'm the animation and game art lecturer here at SAE in Oxford. And I've been asked to put together a little talk on using animation or visual effects for film. And as it happens, the industries are coming together now. So you'll have game engines being used to create sets for backdrops for TV series like Game of Thrones, Vikings, and many others as well. So I'll quickly share my screen. Hope everybody can see this here. I'm going to start talking about matte painting, and that's what I'll be predominantly talking about today. So what is matte painting? We use it in all types of films, TV series, short films, to transport people to places where it would be actually really hard to do. So like, for instance, in The Martian, they had these Martian backdrops. All of them backdrops were created either in CG or painted in Photoshop, okay? And then superimposed in the background with a green screen or a blue screen. Okay, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. So in films, matte painters are the creative and talented people behind making incredible photorealistic landscapes or interior and exterior environments that you can't get on a real set. So if you can imagine logistically shipping actors off to like far off places, maybe it could be, even if you look at this as an example, to Antarctica or something like that. But also where you'd have like big machines like this that just don't exist. You need to create them digitally. So you can either paint them in Photoshop and really work into your drawing ability and painting ability to pull this off, or you can create it in 3D, which I'll be going into as well. Just to give you an overview of who's really sort of revered in the matte painting industry, one guy, Sabi Menihay, I hope I'm getting that right, I hope I'm not butchering his name too much. He's worked on stuff like Rogue One, Star Wars, Thor, Jason Bourne, loads of other ones. And he graduated from a Hungarian University of Fine Arts. So he's got a really good background in traditional art, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on, okay? So in order to do these things, the artist needs to have a good, strong foundation in traditional drawing techniques. So for instance, perspective, form, light and shade, color, all very important, okay? So moving on, how do you get started in matte painting? So you have to love movies, and I'm sure that's why you're all here. So when you're sort of incepting like an idea for a film, if you know about matte painting and how it can be used, it makes your writing become sort of unlimited. So if you've got like far off places that you want to include in your work, if you know that you have access to a green screen or a Photoshop artist or After Effects artist, they'll be able to help you with this, okay? And if you've got any questions around that afterwards, I can answer them for you, no problem. So before I had no idea that I wanted to be a 3D artist or a matte painter, I've worked in a few different studios like Disney, Pixar, Brown Bag Studios, Weta Studios. We worked on Avatar. What was the other ones, like The Hobbit, those kind of films where you have those like fantastical backgrounds. But I didn't know that I was destined for that, so I studied fine arts and then I studied animation as well. But you just kind of get a feeling with the exposure that you get through studying and what your teachers begin to introduce you to. You kind of begin to hone your niche, and I went towards creating 3D backgrounds, 3D characters for film and games. But if anybody wants this document afterwards, I'll give it to you. It's not really a presentation, it's more like a big chunk of text that I put together. So please forgive me for that. So what kind of skills and training and software do you need? So you'll have to use every trick in the book, so make sure you know these softwares quite well, okay? I'll skip over this, but the most important thing here is this: to learn the foundations of traditional drawing and painting. And that's what we do at SAE. So at SAE, we get you working with traditional techniques and traditional thought processes like perspective, form, light and shade, the techniques around design, repetition of pattern, all of this kind of stuff that's really important for you to be able to pull off environments like this. So just giving you a quick look here. If you have a look here, this is Many Hayes' page on ArtStation. Just incidentally, if you're really interested in this subject, ArtStation is the place to be. All the best artists in the world are using this now. So if you have a look in here, some of the matte paintings that he's done, so this would be all digitally matte painted in the background here. A lot of it will be done in 3D, then rendered out and then painted over in 2D in Photoshop. Okay, so you can see here 3D background, and then some scattered buildings, and then you just add to it and add to it, add to it. I'll play this here and see if it gives like a breakdown of the shot. So that would have been created in a software like maybe Maya or something like that, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail soon. So the best way to learn about your colors and traditional painting is to just get in and get your hands dirty and get pigment on the canvas. There are principles that you need to adhere to, which you learn at SAE under me, but the best way is to just get your hands dirty with it and reference the old masters as well as you're going. So we teach Adobe Photoshop for doing 2D paintings from scratch. We also implement the use of taking photographs as reference, cutting them up, using them in your images as well. So a lot of this that you see here might not be a 3D model. It could be like a photograph of something that's been taken at the right angle, brought in, and then used in Photoshop to make that particular scene. There are some other programs here that are really, really important. If I just scooch down here, and it's what we teach at SAE as well. So we teach packages like 3ds Max, Maya, and Modo. Modo less so. It's a really good package, but we teach that less so than anything else. 3D Max is my main tool of choice for making 3D models, buildings, environments, characters sometimes as well. I tend to use ZBrush here for characters, or Mudbox. There's a more organic sculpting sort of process to it. We have other renderers that we use to basically get your final image out of the 3D software. So we have like Arnold, V-Ray, RenderMan. We also use Redshift as well. I'm just going to put that in here because it's a really, really good piece of software. And I tend to gravitate towards that as well. So if you have any questions or you're not clear about what that is, you can ask me afterwards, no problems. So that really just sort of scratches the surface. It's more about your drawing technique and refining that, and then bringing that over into the 3D realm and having the art sort of reign through with that. A lot of backgrounds that are created for films are 2.5D or projected. What that means is there are layers and layers and layers that build up the scene, that give it kind of a parallax feel and make it look like everything's in 3D, but it might not be. So you might have this whole background environment here on one layer, and then this bit on the front here on another layer. And you can do a parallax effect that makes it look like it's real. It's a go-to technique. It's kind of diminishing now, and I'll show you why in a few minutes when I give you a demo in Unreal Engine. But yeah, that's like the 2.5D sort of outlook. So we've also got Unreal Engine coupled with Quixel Megascans. Now this might be alien terminology to you, but I'll explain it in a few minutes when I give you a demo. What we're able to do with Unreal Engine is unreal. We can create live environments in which filmed characters can act in real time, and they've used this technique on The Martian. They've used it on The Mandalorian as well. If you guys have been watching that, really, really cool shows, and what they're doing with it, it's just going to really push the threshold of what can be done for TV series. You've probably seen that TV series production quality has gone exponentially up over the last couple of years with the influx of money from Netflix and services such like that. So I can go into what you should include in your portfolio. I've got a few pointers here if this is something that you want to get into. And of course, you can always book another talk with me as well if you need any sort of any pointers around that. But you got to keep it short, okay? Because you don't want it to be long and drawn out. Put your best work up front as well, because if you can show that you can do production ready shots at the start, chances are people in the technical director's position won't even look at the rest of your show reel. They'll just say, yeah, that's perfect. He or she can cover what we need them to do, give you a call, and then give you the interview, okay? Only include your best as well. Don't put in half-finished work or anything like that. It's a cardinal sin. So make sure you keep your contact details in there, clearly legible. Keep the music discreet. I've fell foul of that before because I do like my music as well, but it did detract from the show reel. So be discreet with your choice of music and keep it royalty free as well, unless you've bought it. And include a CV and a reel breakdown. So a reel breakdown is a breakdown of how each shot works and how it was made. So a good example of that was the video that we just watched here. So if I just continue into this, so we can see here that was a 3D model, but you might render that off on another layer, render this part of the background off on another layer, put these sort of insectoid things on another layer, buildings on another layer, and then show how you've composited the image together to get the final look that we see here. Okay, so all of these would be animatable as well. So I can see it's not quite finished over here as well. You can see like an unfinished spaceship in here. So obviously not this guy's best work. So what do hiring directors want to see, and what's the interview process like? Well, generally it lasts for about 30 to 60 minutes. They will have already seen your show reel. But if you can have a breakdown on like maybe an iPad with you, that's really important as well. So you can talk people through your shots, talk people through your process, and show how indispensable your particular pipeline and workflow is to the hiring manager. That's basically what I wanted to touch upon in that. So typical workday, 9 to 6 p.m. It can go longer. We have dailies. Rather than, we used to have weekly meetings, but they've pushed that to dailies now. So in the morning you'd go in, set out your plan for the day, and they will give you like goals to hit for the end of the day, depending on what your particular role is, whether you're an effects artist, map painter, compositor, lighter. And they're all sort of like gelling together now, actually. So if I was to go into a studio now, I would expect to do all of these things together in my shots and complete my shot from start to finish. So it's a lot of work, but you get more dollars for it if you can pull that off. So advice for aspiring artists: if you've got great traditional drawing and painting skills combined with amazing 3D skills, you'll be in demand. Okay, so what we teach in SAE is to bolster your 2D skills so that underpins your 3D skills, and then you hit the ground running, being able to do everything that you need to do to pull off shots, map painting shots like this, make 3D game environments, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes, that can be used for background map paintings as well. And that's what we focus on at SAE, is making sure that people hit the ground running when they finish. So I've created a little set here myself that's of like a stone quarry. So if I have a little zoom out of this, you see what it is. So this is in Unreal Engine, okay? So they're very realistic, what we call atlases. We call these atlases, okay? So I can take one of these, literally move it on the fly, like this, and start creating what backdrop I want, and then start going in and saying, right, okay, I want to start framing my camera. I can hit on play, so we get a more representational shot of what it's going to be like. So you can start positioning cameras around, etc. You can, I can see there's a bit of a seam here. So I can select this object, I can move this back in, get rid of that seam here. We've got other ways of doing that as well. So I'm going to show you how to alleviate seams and stuff like that. So this is what we do to get these Megascans atlases in. They come in a program called Quixel Bridge. Okay, so I've downloaded all of these, and what you see here is what I've exported into Unreal Engine, and it works really, really quickly. And the beauty of this is that this software is free. If you go to quixel.com and epicgames.com and set yourself up accounts with them, you can download this software for free and start experimenting with it. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to start scattering some of these limestone rocks around, because if you look here, oops, we don't have a lot of rocks on the ground, and we'd like to blend that seam here a little bit more. So we can blend it with objects. So if I go back into this software, I'm going to select this and this. It takes a couple of seconds for me to export it in, so I'm only going to do 2 for this example, maybe that one and that one. So I'll hit on export 2 assets. What it's doing now is it's sending these 3D assets with texture into the engine, and then I'll be able to drag them into the scene and scale and position them exactly wherever I want, and continue to build my scene. And then what you could do with that scene is project it on that big 360 dome and get your characters to act within it. So I'll just go back to the Unreal scene. Hopefully it's still picking it up. It should be. Wait a second here. Yep, so importing, and they'll pop up in here in the content browser. Now, Unreal it can be quite complicated, but it's getting more and more user-friendly. So it's nothing to be afraid of at all. And the way we teach it at SAE is very sort of logical in its progression, from creating your 2D concept artwork to creating the 3D assets, then that will populate the world, but also just taking the standalone 3D assets that come from Bridge here. What I do prefer my students to do is to create 3D assets like this from scratch, so that if you ever go into a studio where Megascan's assets don't cut it, you can create them all from scratch yourself. So you can see here it's importing all of the meshes. You can see down here we've got the atlas in, so literally all you do is drag and drop it in. If I move it up, we've got that little rock in there, so if I press F, that'll frame it. So they're only tiny little rocks. I'll just turn the camera speed down here a little bit. Oops. Now we can zoom in on that. So now all you got to do is scale them in whatever direction that you want, and move them into the position that you want as well. So I'll just move this up over here to where it intersects the wall, bring it down, and then you can literally copy and paste them. So if you press Control C, Control V, move it, rotate it, scale it, copy paste, move it, rotate it, and scale it, and then you can copy paste again. That's how you literally build out those scenes. Now, obviously, these rocks look a lot brighter because we have to do something called building the lighting. See here, the lighting needs to be rebuilt. So in order to get that to match the lighting that I've got in the scene here, which incidentally you can change on the fly. So if I was to grab, let's say, this sun directional light here, and start moving that around to get a different light direction. And what that's doing is changing the sun. If I can show you here. So you're doing that live on the fly. So you can make changes to your sets so the director can see it on the fly. And then you can hit build lighting only. Now it can take a few minutes to build the lighting here, so I'll just give it a few seconds and see what the result is like. But that's as easy as it is. So basically you're just dragging in all of these 3D objects. I think there was this one as well. Move that up. Oops. Start back in. Scale it up. Oops. But yeah, we can literally just position these around and fill out our scene to make it look however the director wants it, however your set designer or set dresser wants it to look. Zoom in on that. And they're incredibly realistic as well. They're all taken from real world scans as well, so really realistic. These are what we call 2K textures. So they're not, when you get up close to them, they're not the highest fidelity, but we can do 16K where it's touch perfect. you wouldn't know the difference. So again, lighting needs to be rebuilt because I brought in new objects. Get that rebuilt. Let's see what kind of result we get. So while that's building the lighting, I guess I could hand it back over to Patrick and see if he wants to open it up to any questions that might be out on the floor for this.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Looking good, mate. How long did it take you to develop that scene in the first place?
Well, because it was all Megascans assets, and if I just come back out here, all it is a ground plane. So I can literally take this, move it around. I can take these objects here, move them around. And it was just about scaling and rotating those objects. I reckon about 20 minutes. So it's not, I mean, once you know how to control the software, it's not hard at all. If I can do it, anybody can do it, trust me.
Okay. Are there any questions that anyone's got at the moment? More than happy if someone either wants to type them in the chat or if they want to come off mute and ask directly.
So you got some animated water in here as well. We can start painting that into the scene wherever we like to. So that's painted on the texture. Yeah. I think just while we're waiting for any questions or whatever, I'll try doing some like landscape painting here. So I've got a material that I can blend in here as well, so you can see those rocks coming in here.
So Aidan, we've got one question just come through.
Yeah, sure.
So it says studio projections are done on the LED screen or a white background.
Sorry, so can you just ask that again?
So I'm not sure whether the query is about those the 360 domes that you were showing earlier, and whether it's done on 360 on LED screens or white backgrounds, and then projected on.
It could be done if it was on a full LED setup. It's more expensive because they're super expensive OLED screens if you're doing it that way. The best way to do it is on like a semi-transparent screen.
Yeah.
And then project onto the back of it. So if you imagine where the extent of one projector's aperture would come to, and where the next one starts, where they cross over, that's where the blend happens. So like that's what makes it merge across the whole way across the back. So yeah, you could do it with OLED screens, but an OLED screen or an LED screen that size would be into the millions for sure.
Yeah. Do they do those sort of things not in 360, but just on kind of cameras into a green screen? So
yeah. So that's what we do in our green screen as well. So we've got like motion tracker targets that we have on them, so we can film people on a green screen and then derive the camera movements from the motion track, and we teach that in animation VFX. Oh. But yeah, that's for sure. We can do that.
I hope that answers your question, Mukesh.
Yeah, I hope so.
You've had another.
There's a lot of parameters here. Yeah, shoot.
About whether you need to be good at art to do animation.
I'll be honest, it does help, but look, I believe, and I'm a firm believer in, if anybody really wants to know how to draw, I'll get it out of them. I was taught how, I did have an aptitude for drawing, I will concede that, but you don't necessarily have to. If you want to be able to draw and want to be able to do this kind of stuff, and you have that much of an interest in it, I'll get it out of you. It's just a matter of time. That's all it is. You know, I've had students, and you know how people say, oh, I couldn't draw a straight line. I think, well, good, straight lines are boring. You know what I mean? So I don't like that that old staple of, oh, I can't draw a straight line. I'd rather people make a mess and then learn to clean the mess up.
I think there's a lot around eye for detail, though, isn't there? Within like what you're doing now.
Yeah, that doesn't make you an artist. Like you hone that eye, yes, and you get better at like picking out what's going to draw the eye to certain places. There are principles that can be taught for that. But for like explaining shape and form on 2D paper, that's where the learning happens. And once you can do that, the world is your oyster within this. I mean, because the engine does a lot for you. You know, when animation is concerned, for moving characters convincingly and all of that stuff, yes, we need to know how to draw the figure, understand the limits of human anatomy and stuff like that. If you understand the limits, you understand where it can be bent and broken and stuff. And then we teach all of that. We teach all of that in SAE. That's like what I learned. So I studied in Ireland in the Irish School of Animation, and all of the teachers there, they were actually ex workers from Disney. They set up a university in Ireland called the Irish School of Animation, and it was like just people who had been sacked from Disney and they couldn't keep on the books anymore. You know, people that worked on Cinderella, Thumbelina, Beauty and the Beast, all of those kind of films. So I'm lucky that they're all the people that taught me. You know, so I'm really lucky that I've got to be taught by those people.
Yeah. I think there's definitely, you mentioned before about budget and how a lot of filmmakers are kind of veering towards this over moving a whole set around the world to film what they want. And I think that's something that's become a lot more evident, not only with films, but around adverts, TV series. But The Mandalorian is a perfect example for it.
Exactly. And the thing is, like you say about budgets, all of this stuff is free. It's all free. Like, unless you start making money from it. So like Unreal have like this financial setup where like if you make a certain amount of money, you pay a certain amount of royalty to them for using their engine. But practicing with it and all of that stuff is free. Yeah. So like if you've got an interest in it, there's no excuse for not being able to use it, especially now that we're all sort of stuck at home, you know. It's a great time to be learning it. And this, you can build a scene like this really, really quickly. And you can use this as a background for Photoshop painting. So for instance, if I was to hit play on this, let's say for instance, I move the camera over to here like that. And then I go to Windows key, type in snip, wait for that to come up, hit new. I can start a new Photoshop painting with just that image. And that's your job, like half done. You know, it's using the tools creatively. That's what's really really important. Yeah. It's one thing learning the tool. It's like using them all together and saying, okay, how can I mishmash all of this stuff together? And we teach those techniques. There are like go-to techniques between software, but there are also ways to really sort of like hone it yourself.
Yeah. I've got another query here. I'd like to know what kind of notebook runs this edition program.
So it's running really smoothly on my machine because I've got like a really smart setup here. So my machine has got 64 gigs of RAM. It's water cooled. It's got a GeForce GTX 1080 graphics card and an i7 series processor, one of the higher end ones. That's because it's my job, it's my profession. You could run Unreal Engine and get this kind of results on maybe a 600 to 800 pound laptop, but you would want to aim for an NVIDIA GTX graphics card or preferably an RTX graphics card, at least 16 gigs of RAM, really preferably 32. I've got 64, and maybe an i9 generation processor. That's what I would recommend. I mean, it does cost quite a lot to get the really high-end machines. But you don't have to go that high-end to be able to pull off what I'm doing here. Not at all. Yeah, that's pretty much me. That's what I had to show. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, sorry, we've got another query here from Tom. Could you outline advantages, disadvantages for budget film production of using a 3D LED projection versus a green screen 3D post-production?
Okay, so with the production of 3D LED projections, you get higher end product. You can make live changes to the environment that you're working on. So, for instance, in Unreal Engine, the drawback is it's costly, very, very costly. Whereas you can create the environment, get it passed by the art director and say, yes, that's exactly what we want. Shoot it on a green screen and track the camera and take that camera information and put it into Unreal Engine. But you have to shoot the character without knowing where they are exactly in the green screen. And it's a challenge, but it's doable. We teach techniques for how to do that. We don't only use Unreal for that. We use 3ds Max, we use Maya, we use Houdini to resolve the camera track and get the character on top of the green screen, on top of the background, sorry, by keying out the green screen. Traditionally, green screens are a bit cheaper to run than LED projection screens, and that's just because of the amount of apparatus that you need to pull that off. That's just how it is. But green screens in and of themselves, I mean, you can paint a wall green and get a key on it. There's no problem with that. But to have them evenly lit properly so you can get a proper key out on it to get rid of the green screen background, evenly lit lights are very expensive as well. So it's, I mean, both routes are quite expensive, but we have all of that sort of apparatus on campus here at SAE. Well, I say we have all of that. We don't have the 3D projection screens, but we could set up a makeshift one. We've got projectors there. We've got the ability to like create sort of like white curtains, project onto them. We can do all of this stuff and show the proof of concept of it and how it works, how to set it up and stuff. No problem. But to have like one of those ones from Industrial Light and Magic, they're millions. They cost millions. But it's worth it because the end result is amazing.
Yeah, and the amount of environments you can create from it, I guess.
Yeah, if I'll show you another quick one that a friend of mine that works at Quixel was working on. So Quixel is the company that makes Megascans and stuff. So if I just quickly go into here and search for Real, so it's this. Let me share my screen again. So this is using the Icelandic pack. So I used the Stone Quarry pack to make mine, but this was using the Icelandic pack. Now you'll see the quality here. So you can like start painting in your landscapes, all of the rocks and that. You can put in massive, mountains in the background. And you've got that exponential height fog as well. That makes it look like it's really distant. So this is the final shot that he's aiming for. This aspect ratio is what he's aiming for. And you can continue on. You can put in like the sky dome, which you can rotate around and it matches the shadows. You can put your characters into this, shooting it live. You can have like fog cards in it and stuff. And then the final result, like the results are absolutely stunning. I'll just give you a quick look at what I came up with. That. So it's all photoreal. I mean, it's all, they went to Iceland to scan all of this stuff in 3D. And that's what they give you for free in the Megascans library. And then you can do your live color grading in Unreal as well. You can change, I'm really sure they do some live color grading here. Yeah, and camera exposure settings and stuff. It's all in there. Yeah, and it's all animated fog and stuff like that. You can do so much with it. You know, just how much time you've got to give it, really.
Yeah, we've got another query, Aidan.
Mm-hmm.
So Richard said there's a lot of skills to learn in animation. Is it better to be a jack of all trades or focus on being good at a particular area to secure the job?
Good question, and I have a really good answer for it as well. If you don't want to be going sent from pillar to post in the studio and getting a set wage for it, because you'll be doing exponentially more work if you're a jack of all trades, and that's where I fell because I got good at everything, and I was showing people because I wanted feedback on it. But when people get to know that you can do everything, they'll put you up for like the next job that comes along that comes down the pipeline, and you're really busy. It can be really stressful. So if you like focus on a niche, like maybe characters, and become super cool at characters, well, you're only ever going to be doing characters, which is great. If you do environments and you focus on environments, well, you're only going to be doing environments. Where I do both, and I do visual effects, both for film and for games and all of that stuff. And once the cat is out of the bag, that's it. You're just like sent from pillar to post in the studio. But it also makes you a good teacher as well. So like in the studios that I've worked at, I would do what we call lunch crunches. So we'd have a lunch at a desk, but we'd have a little problem that needs to be solved by one department. And I'd give my solution to it, because there are many ways to solve things in 3D. I mean, you can use different programs, different approaches, and it's a good way to learn. To teach, if you're a jack of all trades, of course. But the high end character artists, like I worked on the Na'vi characters in Avatar. That was because I was first a character artist. That was my first job, and I got good at that. But through learning how to texture them and how to make them animate and stuff like that, it's the same sort of pipeline, just a little bit twisted for environments. So I kind of applied that to environments as well, and it was a natural progression for me. That kind of respect.
Perfect. Well, any last queries before?
Yeah, I've got another few minutes, if there's any.
Yeah. What I'll do is, Aidan, just while we're waiting to see if there's any other queries coming through, I'm just going to put the link to the webinar that we've got going on for our master's course in the chat. Mm-hmm. So if anyone would like to join that event going on the 30th of June, they're more than welcome. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, we might wrap it up there.
Well, I hope everybody got something from it. You know, it gives you sort of, if you're into purely film, for TV series, short films, production films, this is what goes into making them now. And it might be that you were interested in doing this but didn't realize that you had to study animation, VFX, or games to do it. But the great thing about studying at SAE as well is that we expose you to all disciplines on your journey through anyway. So we've had students before, I'm not sure if you've met her, Patrick, Stephanie Marty. She's now got a VFX job down in London doing this kind of stuff, but she started doing film and decided that for a major project she wanted to build a green screen background and shoot somebody on it and put them in it and make it feel like it was real. And that's what she did. She came into my classes rather than like the film oriented classes towards the end of our studies, and did this kind of stuff. And it looked great. I wish I had it here actually, but it's on campus, unfortunately, the film. Yeah, I mean, if you think that you're just going to be exposed to one thing in SA, it won't be that. I mean, you'll get audio, you'll get film, you'll get animation, games, VFX, you'll get the lot. If that's what you want. If you don't, you want to focus on script writing or story, narrative, all of that kind of stuff, you can. But the doors are always open. You can sit in on any of your classes.
I think the fact that it's an evolving industry means that, you know, you never know what's going to take off in which direction, whether it's VR, whether it's kind of the green screens. There's so many different directions it could go within the next few years.
Yeah, and that's the exciting thing about it, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I've just had a, what would you need to study and pass to come to SAE as I'm 15 and looking at what I need to learn. So, I mean, I'll jump in there a little bit. You know, if you're 15 and looking towards joining us at the age of 18, you know, when we're university level, you'll be wanting to get hands-on really with as much kind of practical work as you can. I know Aidan, if he was looking at someone wanting to join, he'd be looking at their drawing skills, whether they've had practice using any of the softwares that he's mentioned. Definitely worth to try out some of the free softwares. So Blender is probably one to try out that's free.
You've been studying, Patrick.
yeah. Amazing how I pick up some stuff along the way. But yeah, you know, do come along. We do loads of free workshops along the way, so keep an eye on our events going on. We'll get industry professionals to come on in, and they're free to attend for anyone. You know, our students and people in the general public. So just keep an eye on those tabs, really.
Yeah, like as just to add, piggyback on what you were saying there, Patrick. I mean, we do the taster events in which, when the campus does eventually reopen, we get you in on site. We get you in for a day, show you what a day in the life of the student is like. And then we get you engaging with our students, and they'll tell you about their journey as well and what they've been working on as well. So it's good to see the outcomes as well from what the students are doing as well.
Yeah, is just asked what A-level subjects will help. So I guess anything around the whole kind of creative media subject. So if arts potentially, your drawing skills, if they run an animation course, get involved in that, film. So anything really that you creative wise around that. I don't know if you want to add anything subject wise to that, Aidan, but.
Well, there's, I don't know, see, I was schooled in Ireland and I don't know what the artistic subjects are here. Technical drawing is pretty good. You don't necessarily have to be good at maths. My maths suck, so don't worry about that. Just knowing that you are going to be moving things in 3D in the X, Y, and Z axes, and knowing that that pertains to a direction, that's all you really need. Technical drawing can be good, especially if you want to get into doing vehicles for 3D games, for film, for TV series. Technical drawing can be good for that, and for product design as well. We teach principles for architectural design as well, for architectural visualization. All of architectural visualization is being done in Unreal now as well, and it looks completely real. It's like one-to-one. You would not know. There's one that's someone's made the interior of the Titanic, and you just wouldn't know that it's not real. It's just nuts. It really is nuts. And we teach all of that stuff. So get on down.
I'd just say, yeah, if you've got any queries kind of about entry for SAE, please feel free to hang on at the end, and I'll give you my email address, and you can fire any queries directly to myself. More than happy to guide you down that route. But yeah, otherwise, thank you all for coming along. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening, and yeah, we'll keep an eye out on our events page if you want to get involved with anything we're doing further down the line.
Yes, and if you are interested in any of this kind of stuff and haven't gotten any feedback on your portfolio as it stands right now, don't be afraid. Get in contact with Patrick and say, could you have Aidan have a look over my portfolio and see how it's progressing, and I'll give you some pointers in which sort of route to follow and tips to look out for.